discussing the transaction, which is a job that we're working on. We're about midway through the construction process. As mentioned, one of our project managers has left, and we will be filling in for him. So to start off with, we are working as a subcontractor under GC Builders. We're working under design and build delivery, and we are going to be doing this is a core and shell project, and it is split up into 4 different sections. Sections 3 and 4 are going to be the southernmost section of the job site. Sections 1 and 2 are going to be the northernmost section of the job site. And we are currently working through some complications, as this was originally supposed to be an office building, and then we got an order to change it to a lab building, and then there's further complications stemming off of that. But before we get too far into that, we'd like to just take a little bit of time to introduce ourselves. My name is Ian Kemp.
I'm Jonathan Rossetti.
I'm Jeremy Miller.
I'm Ramon Hernandez.
I'm Jordan King.
And I'm Howard Long.
Without further ado, let's dive into this. I think Jonathan will be able to get us started.
Yeah, so some general background about this project, as Kian was talking about. First thing we know is that we are about halfway through the schedule. Our notice to proceed was on January 2016, and the final date of completion should be May 2018. We are in San Francisco, so definitely we do face some challenges. However, we are currently about to be finishing all of our prefab work. We are currently almost 50% done on our installation process, and as of today, we have crews working on the north side of the 4th floor in sectors 1 and 2, as well as on the south side of the 8th floor on sectors 3 and 4. And now, without further ado, I'm going to give it to myself. Sorry. To talk about the project status and updates we're going to be talking about today. So the first thing we're going to be talking about today is the upcoming site activities. We're going to give you guys a 30-day breakdown schedule, as well as some important activities in the near future. We're going to be talking about our manpower projections, who will be working, how many people will be working, and what they will be working on. We also want to define our billing and cash flow, because as you guys know, our colleague left us with a big bill, and we're about 2 months behind schedule on payment, so we'll be addressing those problems, as well as talk about the change estimates that we came across came across the project, as well as the contractual risk that we've seen while moving forward. So without further ado, now I'll hand it off to Kian for the upcoming site activities.
Thanks, Jonathan. So we just prepared a roughly 3 to 4 week look ahead on some key activities that are going to be progressing with. Starting on June 19th, we're going to be doing the level 9 restroom MEP in the ceiling. All these restrooms, we're going to have risers and then MEP in the ceiling. It takes us approximately 5 days to do the risers and about 3 days to do the MEP in the ceiling. We do have a little bit of lag time in between those 2 activities because we have to get other trades into those rooms as well. So that being said, roughly a bathroom will cost us about 8 working days. Level 10 restrooms, we're going to start on June 20th, level 11 on June 22nd. And then something to keep in mind, we do have air handling units showing up on July 25th, so we will be having some crane pick activity. Now I would like to pass it to the north, talk about the north for a little bit. So on the north side, very similar to the south side with the restrooms. We're going to have riser installation and MEP in the ceiling. It's also going to take us 8 days each to complete these, just like the south side. We are going to have some other trades get in there in between, so it's not going to be working 8 straight days in a row. Luckily, we have a lot of stacked activities, so we're going to be able to move our crews around, so we're not wasting any manpower. So starting with level 5, June 20th, starting level 6 restrooms, June 22nd, and then we also have stairs we're doing rough-in levels 1 through 6. It's going to take us approximately 2 days per flight of stairs to get up there, and that's going to be about 10 working days total. And additionally, on the north end, we also have air handling units showing up for that on July 25th. This is a little bit more complicated because there were some height restrictions on the tower crane that we were concerned about, but we believe we've worked through that, and we will talk about that later on in the presentation.
So, as you guys probably know, this was a pretty dicey project, and the next couple of months, it's going to get more dicey. And to tackle that problem, I came together and made this manpower estimate for you guys so that you can see just kind of the type of capacities that we kind of need in the upcoming future. Now, if you guys look actually on that manpower estimate, it's kind of split up into two different sections, cordoned off by this kind of little gap in the middle, which I'll explain later. But on the left side, as Keenan mentioned, we're going to be going off into the equipment installation, any kind of supporting structures or activities that's going to have to support that. Along with that, we're going to be picking up things like air handling units, cooling towers, things like chillers, boilers, pumps, anything to get that building started and ready to go in regards to mechanical equipment. And following that, actually, we're touching back on that wall over there. The GC is actually going to be doing some exterior facade work, going into some waterproofing, and then for that, we're going to be heading inside into the interior, where we're going to be following them in and doing some 4x4 mechanical rough-in work, where we're going to be working around things like the restrooms, stairways, elevator lobbies to get that mechanical rough-in work done. Now, the more interesting thing about the right side of this manpower estimate is the fact that we're going to be dealing with our max manpower of about 1,592 hours within a week, and that's going to actually be bringing us in the new year for 2018. And it's because we're going to be working on about 15 separate floors across all 4 sectors in that 1 week. And at any given time, we might be working on between 8 to 12 floors at that same time. So I thought that it was adequate for me to go ahead and create about 10 crews of 4 laborers so that we can tackle whatever kind of schedule hiccup that might come into play so that we can stay on schedule and most importantly, just be a profitable project. And going into the next slide, I wanted to talk a little bit more on cost and the change estimates that we kind of had to tackle and their impact on the overall project. Now, the most telling thing and probably the biggest elephant in the room for this project was the fact that the original contract over here on that pie chart is only about 42.8% of the total contract at this point in time. And it's dominated by the fact that we have that change order number 4 and change order number 6 adding together to be about 55% of the overall contract now, and that's going to be that lab kind of change order that we got. And aside from that, actually, we do have some other change orders that are going to be in there, not as big in cost, but potentially just as big in scope. For example, we have 3 different alternates that are mentioned in change order number 3. That's going to be starting off with number 1.b, and that's actually going to affect some of the things within our contract about indoor air quality, and it's going to punish, or it's going to put a little bit of a hole in attempting to go for a platinum LEED certification, because we're going to be exchanging out activated carbon filters actually for MERV 13 filters, but to offset that kind of damage, we're going to be going after alternate number 3, which is going to make those air handling unit materials, kind of upgrade them to stainless steel materials so that we're going to better fight off corrosion and prevent any kind of water leakage, before finally getting into alternate number 7, which is some hot water connection pipes to some domestic hot water piping. And then there's also some pending change estimates that are actually being reviewed at this moment. For example, the most important one probably right now in terms of cost is going to be that TI work for that minimum entry point, so that we can get that reviewed and done as soon as possible. Same thing with the rooftop vents that you guys mentioned in the email earlier, as well as some duct redesign. And with that, to dig a little bit more into some of the costs, I'll hand it over to Ramon.
So yeah, as you guys well know, we're behind on billing. This comes into play because of the SCO6 implements, about $6 million weren't allocated correctly into our billing schedule of values. So the goal here is just to kind of catch up on our billing payments to get current. As you guys can see, SCO4 was a huge cost. This was all equipment and material, which already was purchased and is being delivered to the site. So this is a huge cost to us. The goal is to get current, move forward. We will also be billing for a field pipe reroute, which is a price and go per the architect's request. So this is another thing that we need to bill immediately. As far as schedule values, we adjusted the percentage to completion just because of the new contracts, SC6 and SC4, which decreased some of the completion amounts and added value to it. So as far as like costs and remarks are updated, as you guys can see, with you guys, and we'll be moving forward to July.
So as Ramon mentioned in June, June was all about catching up on our old payments that we were due. July, moving forward, is all about getting a balanced cash flow and getting a consistent payment method through the rest of this project. So we will be doing this first by dispersing the change orders throughout each of those related tasks throughout the project. And then some other milestones that we hope to complete in July are having 85% of the total sheet metal prefabrication finished, 50% complete on our equipment procurement, as well as piping prefabrication at 75% completed, as well as completing fully our parking prefab as well. There are also a whole bunch of other things that we do anticipate, especially moving forward into the upcoming months. So we hope to create a consistency for our billing and not fall behind anymore.
All right, so we received your email yesterday regarding the supplemental steel. And so I looked over the proposal with the exclusions in it, and then went and cross-referenced that with the contract documents. And within the contract documents, in the specific inclusions, it listed that it includes supplemental supports. And so that might be a cost that we end up having to eat, which was $350,000. I couldn't really see anything around that one, but I'll get into some plays that we might be able to mitigate that. And while doing this cross-check between the proposal and the contract documents, I realized that in the exclusions of the proposal were the fire and smoke campers and the patching of existing conditions. But within our contract documents, those are both included and not listed in the exclusions. So that's just a future potential risk that we're gonna have to look into for who's gonna cover those costs. As far as the controls go, those were listed in our exclusions in our proposal, and I also found in the specifications that they were excluded. But within the contract documents, it doesn't necessarily include or exclude them. So I do not believe we're going to be responsible for these controls. And so hopefully we'll be able to issue that as a change order. And so some ways of mitigating this risk. First, we want to establish kind of the precedence of these documents. And so we just wanted to assume worst case scenario and kind of go talk to just our legal department for which one of these documents takes precedence, whether it's a contract or a proposal or what we can do about this. And hopefully, like I said, for the controls, we can get a change order issued and get some money for that. But if worst comes to worst, we'll have to use our contingency to cover some of these costs. Another additional risk that we thought you guys should be aware of is the damaged material on site. This is because we got an email from GC Builders that there was material damaged on site and that we were gonna have to deal with that. And so we reached out to our superintendent, and he told us that he believes the material is being vandalized. And so we're gonna take the precautions on our end to make sure this doesn't happen. We're gonna cover our material as well as elevate it and put cones and caution tape around it so that hopefully this stops. We've also reached out to the two GC builders in the hopes that they'll put up security cameras and kind of work with us on this, because it does say in the contract that we're responsible for our own material, but that if there are potential schedule impacts, which there will be if we have to reorder material, that will be on GC Builders. And so hopefully they're willing to, we're going to do our end and they'll do their end on it.
So this slide's pretty busy, but it'll make more sense once we break it down for you. We're going to start up here at the top with these yellow arrows, which will represent our temporary access way. We decided this would be a good placement for us because trucks will be able to come down 16th Street and turn right into the site, so that way they'll not have to cross or impede traffic at all. And that way they can come through and drop off at this green staging area on the south side of Sector 1. They will also be able to leave the site taking a right, once again, not having to cross or impede traffic at all. It's crucial that we work with our fellow trade partners to reserve this green staging area, because in this staging area, our crane is fully capable to make all the picks in that Sector 1, and that we will not have to get a new crane or sub anything else out. So there is 6 units being picked in Sector 1 for a total of 20 picks. We believe that we'll be able to pick around 5 per day, but the schedule, we'll be okay with the schedule as long as we do at least 3. We're gonna work with GC Builders to do all these picks that night, just because 7 of the 20 picks are critical picks, and that we believe that night would be the best time, so there'd be less traffic and no one in the surrounding real estate office or in the parking garage underneath. But however, that is totally up to GC builders, and if they do not comply with that, we are fully confident in their crane's ability to make all these picks during the day. So at first, we wanted to take the picks and pick and place them as just from front to back. But we looked kind of deeper into the schedule, and we realized that things are showing up at different times. Our air handling units will be there first. And as Jordan was saying, we want to reduce all risk to any damage of property at all. So we want to pick and set those as soon as we can. So we're going to pick our air handling units first, which is our blue diamond, our green diamond, and our dark blue diamond at the front and back. At first, we were worried that we would be flying over other equipment, but then we looked deeper into the plans and realized that at the tallest part of our building, we'll still have almost 7 feet of clearance, so that we will not have any problems flying over any equipment on top of the roof. And then that highest point of the building is actually taller than any mechanical structure on there, so we'll have enough clearance to pick and set everything as we feel need to. So as you know, the owner has gone from a office building to a lab and now wants to go back to an office space. So this kind of leaves us with 2 scenarios. We can either demo the current lab risers as they stand right now, or we can wait till the completion of the project and demo everything there as well. It's kind of an opportunity for our company to make money because we are a little bit behind on billing and everything. We have priced these profits at 15%. So the bigger difference in these is that we only make around $2,400 more by waiting until the project is complete to demo those lab risers. But by demoing the lab risers as they stand now, we face schedule implications at approximately a 4-week delay due to updating mechanical drawings and labor backlog, which could come into play later in the project because there is a liquidated damage clause. It shouldn't be a huge problem for us because they are expanding our scope, so we would assume that they would give us more time so those liquidated damages would not come into play. But if that compiles on top of something else and we do get behind on something else, we could just up manpower to mitigate this problem and get everything back on track and rolling.
So the bottom line of this project is that we need to stay on schedule. We believe that if we stay on schedule, we will get this project done on time and efficiently. The things we need to address right now are mitigating the risks. Jordan brought up to you a whole bunch of risks that we have now seen and that we need to figure out immediately. We need to confirm these man hours with you guys to make sure we are having the correct people on the job site, being efficient as possible, doing the job at hand. We need to get these, especially the June payment billing approved so we can send those bills out and make sure we get our money as soon as possible. And it's something to just consider right now is that crane pick decision. So we need to make all these decisions right now. However, we do believe that we can get this job done. And at this moment, we'd like to open it up for any question Q&A.
Can you guys go back to that manpower chart? So I see that you had a couple big spikes. Do you guys have any ideas on how we might be able to level that off a little bit? I'm worried that we're not going to be able to get back up to that crew size in October.
Yeah. So during this time, there is kind of a long period of time because there are 12 floors that we are managing that we can't space out that mechanical roughing so that it isn't so kind of highly elevated. So we can space it out a little bit.
Okay, and so for that first section, do you have any ideas on how to maybe do some more work on those lower weeks?
Actually, that makes up a good point because we can, during those first early weeks, the GC is going to be pouring concrete and just kind of getting the core and shell of the building up and in. But if we can coordinate with the GC and kind of get our teams in before they're doing their interiors and coordinate with other trades to make that happen, then I believe that we could possibly find a way to level off some of that manpower estimate.
Okay. And one of you had said that all of the equipment had arrived. The other said that 50%. Which is it?
We believe that there was only around 59% of the equipment. As you can see on the schedule of values we updated recently today, I believe we have around, I think 50% on the June billing. Okay. So that's the number we're going to stick with based on the schedule of values.
Any concerns on getting material in time?
No, based on the schedule that we've seen, like the materials, especially the big pick items, are going to come in on time, and we'll be able to put them into use as soon as we get there.
Okay, great.
Talking about looking at time frames for doing that demo of the risers, looking at this manpower loading graph, does it give you any ideas on where it might be a good time?
To demo the risers?
Yeah.
Because demoing the risers would come out all the way at the end, back end of the graph where there's no manpower. But if the owner does decide to go with that, we can go in coinciding with your planning, leveling off some of that manpower on the right side. We could stretch it out a little bit further out so that it accommodates all the way until you see on that April benchmark over there.
For demoing the lab risers, if they want us to do it now, how did you guys determine what would be the credit that we have for what's installed versus not installed?
So we looked at the schedule to see that pretty much one of the big differences was the number of risers that are installed already. So at the end of the project, there's obviously going to be more risers installed than there is right now. So that was the big change in the number, pretty much only the change. And we decided that for the lab risers, we would test them just in case, like after the finish, and there is a testing fee. So that is also another what causes the changes in numbers for both of them. And we marked these up both at 15% profit just so we could try to make a little bit more money back.
So for option one, if they want to demo everything now, does that cost just what the cost would be to demo the risers that are installed, or does that account for the credits of what we currently don't have?
For the top number, that is for what we currently have installed right now.
So do we have any credits accounted for the risers that currently are installed that we want to have to demo, so therefore we'd be giving back what's in our original contract?
So so everything is pretty much already prefabbed. So we have they're really not saving any money by demoing it out. They've already paid for it because it's already been paid.
What about labor to install the duct risers that aren't in yet?
That is the number change. Is the labor to demo both.
The labor change to demo
So
the ones we haven't installed?
Yeah. So the at the very end, the labor change, that number is higher significantly because of the labor change to install or to demo more risers than for the other one. To demo as they stand right now.
I think we'll just have to double check that, because option two is if we wait till the end of the job, after we install everything, then we demo all the risers. Option one is there's certain risers we haven't installed yet, so we would have to credit back what they just paid us in that lab change order.
Okay, we'll get back to our notes.
Off of this, these labor dollars that you're coming up with right now, you guys have it marked up at 15% profit. How are you guys coming up with the original costs for labor on that?
So for labor, we assumed that we believed that we could do 3 steel sheet metal apprentices and 1 foreman, and we had them at 40 hours per week, and it said it takes 4 men 2 weeks to demo 1 riser. So then by making all that math, and there's 7 risers completed, and then we believe we had 5 or 6 as they stand right now. So that is how we got those numbers for the labor.
So where does the labor rates come from that you guys put?
Oh, the contract.
From the contract? Okay. Do we know what that labor rate includes? Is there anything like, is it a fully burdened rate, or is it just the direct manpower or direct labor?
It's the just regular time. So it's $80 per hour for apprentice, and it is, I believe, $172.20 for foreman.
Okay, you might want to go back and check the contract on that, because I believe there was something in there that rate that we gave that already included 50% markup. I like you guys' theory of getting 50% more on that, but that we could be cheating out our client at that point. If they caught that right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Who's had a chance to read the OSIP document?
Is that the insurance for the owner controlled insurance program?
Yeah, are we up to date with Ferguson and Biggie?
Oh, Ferguson is at this current time, actually in the morning, we got an email from Catherine. So she asked us to get, to kind of send Ferguson that notice of award. So we are at the process of, we just sent out that email, and we're trying to get that information back from Ferguson so that we can forward it as soon as possible. Because I know there is Todd, I believe, our superintendent on site, who has a pickup coming in for shipment, and we don't want to get that turned away.
So will they be on site performing work or just making a delivery?
Ferguson?
Just
Yeah.
a delivery.
Okay. Let's go back and just maybe read that, but be sure to follow up.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want that shipment to get turned away.
Well, just what I believe what we're getting at is with the OSIP insurance, that only covers on-site labor, so Ferguson wouldn't actually have to be enrolled in OSIP, because they won't be providing any on-site labor. So the response back to the GC would be they're currently a material supplier, not an actual subcontractor.
Good point, yeah. I'll definitely check Catherine and tell me that, see where that goes.
And Biggie, they're already signed up, right?
Yeah, Biggie was, I believe,
So just an email reply.
We go back to that, your manpower within chart real quick. I was looking at your guys' startup and sequencing schedule, and it looks like we're turning the building over November of 2017.
Yeah, I can speak to that actually. So we were basing that startup schedule upon when our equipment was arriving. We since looked at the schedule and realized we need to adjust those dates, and we can get back to you with that.
Okay.
We take a look at the PIC plan here, let's dive into that. One thing I'm a little concerned about, I'm noticing that do you have a plan for the lab exhaust fans?
The lab exhaust fans?
Yeah.
So I believe we're gonna have to go back to the drawings and get back to you on
So one thing I'm concerned about, you have a chance to look at the steel, the curtain wall drawings?
Yeah, with the
height restrictions? Because it looks like we're not gonna be able to pick over the mechanical rooms. And so as far as sequencing and things like that, if you're picking, the air handlers first, so the light blue and the green, and you put those in, how are we gonna get the lab exhaust fans and the cooling towers in if we're blocked off, if we can't go over the mechanical room? So like coming in, once these are in there, it's gonna block us from being able to get those in spot in place.
Okay, so we're gonna have to go back and adjust that, so to make sure we get everything in.
As you're talking on the air handler fixture, are these coming as single complete units, or are they in multiple
There are
sections?
multiple sections. So each, I believe it says up there on the on the top right, but some have about 5 picks per air handler, and some about 3 or 4.
So do we know which ones, what order we're picking those sections in?
Yes, so we're going to start with the blue diamond. Well, like you said, we need to adjust that, but originally we were going to start with the blue diamond up top because the air handlers are going to be delivered on site first, so we wanted to get everything off the ground as quickly as possible. So we were going to go from the blue diamond to the green, and then back to the navy blue at the very bottom, and then from there the cooling towers would show up next, and then we'd be able to build the chillers after that.
I had some questions here on both the June and July billings here. Let's start with June. So it's happy to see we're catching up. It's been definitely too bad that we're this far behind. We're seeing a $6.5 million bill in the month of June. Have you had any conversations with GC builders already about this? And are they prepared for seeing a big drop here this month?
Yeah, so we kind of just like, per the emails that we went back and forth with Kyle, split it up into the fabrication, everything that like had to do with it. A lot of the work was, it was already in plan, I think since April, and got split up. The SCO4 was all material, all air handlers and everything that got purchased. So they knew that this was coming as far as work was already starting, so it was already in the plans.
I'm looking at July billing here that you gave us this morning. You have another almost 5.7 million in July. Is that right?
Yeah, we have. Which line item are you?
I'm reading just total billing for the month of July.
Yeah, well, in July, we just want to make sure we finalize those gaps that we need to catch up on, and we don't anticipate to bill as much as we have going forward, but we want to just get back on set and try to find a consistent way to get back on track and just like hone in and get a consistent number moving forward. June and July are hefty months, but we don't plan to consistently build this much moving forward. We're just trying to catch up on what we were already behind on in the first place.
Okay, we have a couple million in receivables. Does anybody know where those payments are standing? Are we going to see that money soon?
We hope to have all of those. I think we have about $2 million in receivables, so we hope to have that $2 million accounted for by August 1st.
Okay, and some of them were over 30 and over 60. Has anybody reached out to the GC to see if it's being held for any reason?
We haven't currently done that, but we definitely plan to do that in the coming days.
Alright, what do you guys think? You know, we went over some of the risks here. What's the one that really is keeping you up at night here? What's our biggest risk?
Controls subcontract.
Yeah, that's a big chunk there certainly to figure out.
Yeah, so that's definitely the one we're gonna focus most time on figuring out because it's kind of ambiguous in the contract documents. So we're gonna have to coordinate that with GC builders and figure that out.
What is the risk there? What are they asking us to do?
So the risk is they reached out to us asking us to go and contact our control subcontractor. So they believe that this is within our responsibility already. And since we just got this job, we're trying to figure it all out. And so that's why I went and looked in the contract and saw that it wasn't necessarily in our scope of work, but it also wasn't in our exclusions. And so it leaves it kind of in a strange spot.
Do we strike it, or is it just?
It's striked in one of the paragraphs.
Okay.
It strikes out management and just says that we need to coordinate the work.
So do you want to keep going down that road and tell the GC we have excluded, or are you going to go after a change order for that?
So I want to go after a change order for it because I think we just want to keep good relations with GC builders and not make them do all that work. And it also help us with these other ones. If we definitely keep that cost, that'll kind of make us some extra money on the job that could offset that.
And who's asking? Is it the project manager for the GC? Is it an intern? I mean,
I believe it was the project manager that was asking for the controls.
What about the supplemental steel? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we received that email about the supplemental steel, and within the specific inclusions and ancillary scope inclusions, it said that we include supplemental supports and supporting construction within our scope of work. And so I believe that falls into there. And so I think that might come back to be work that we'll have to perform.
Is there any history or back up or any argument that we can possibly have to push back on that? Because that's a big hit if we have to absorb that cost.
Yeah, the only thing against it is that in our bid proposal, it was excluded from there. That's all I can find as of now, but I can take it deeper and look into it.
On the other side of risks, here, what's our best opportunity here to gain some ground?
I think change orders is definitely our best opportunity here because it gets the work done, keeps the schedule on time, and also just makes us more money on the job.
Jordan, did you create the risk document that you submitted?
Yeah, I created the risk document.
Good job. It was really helpful. Like to have the screenshots and contract and your recommendation. So please continue.
So the last thing I'll ask is, do we know what the our plan is for startup sequencing? Do you guys have a chance to put that schedule together and know what our order is for that?
Yeah, so
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, so for our startup sequencing, I believe we are going to get the cooling water sequencing going first, and we're gonna get all of basically the chilled water, the hot water, and the cooling water, all started getting that purged at the same time, getting the pumps up and running, and then we're going to start with getting everything programmed once we get our controls subcontract figured out. And then once we get the cooling towers and the chillers up and online and ready to rock, we should be in good shape to then start our smoke dampener testing and our air handling units and get all of that up and running, and then get that done in time for TCO.
And are any of our activities dependent on any other trades?
Yeah, we need the electricians to give us power to all of our units, and we need our controls to get in there and program everything.
Good job, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.